Hi everyone, Jared here, and thanks for checking out E3 coverage on GamerSlice. In this video I'm going to be recapping and reviewing Ubisoft's E3 2017 press conference. Now I'm going to be up front out of the gate. Ubisoft did a much better job this year than they have in previous years, and I mainly attribute that to Aisha Taylor not hosting it. I don't even know if she's a real gamer or if her heart's in it or not, but I'm just being up front here. The conferences with her are usually pretty cringy, and last year's was a record high level of cringe, and they bombed it. They were the worst of E3 last year, Ubisoft was. But they did much better this year without her. And boy, to start it off, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. First game, I guess there was rumors circulating about this, but Yves Guillemot of Ubisoft came on stage, as well as Shigeru Miyamoto, and they had this cool moment where they had like these toy, I guess, like replica guns from the game they were holding out. It was a great picture moment to see two great industry leaders or heads of industry leading companies on stage together. And honestly, I think this is going to be one of the best collaborations of major game companies that's going to come out probably, or perhaps ever. I mean, this is a game I would actually play too. It's Mario's Rabbids crossover. It's a turn-based strategy game most comparable to XCOM. I know a lot of people make that comparison, but honestly, it's for good reason, because out of all the turn-based strategy games, it's most similar to XCOM. So Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle combines Ubisoft and Nintendo licensed characters, but it's actually developed by Ubisoft, and the lead producer for the game is Xavier Manzanares. I think I said it right. Manzanares. So he's heading up the production of the game, and it's actually been in development for 3+ years, and it's going to be a Switch exclusive, obviously, since it's using Nintendo characters. There's a couple of interesting things. One, when Ubisoft, or whoever it was at Ubisoft that had this proposition, and Nintendo or Shigeru Miyamoto consented to it, said, I don't want you to make just a jump game. I want you to really do something that's new and unique, never been done before. And while a turn-based strategy game has obviously been done before, it's never been done before with these characters and in the way that they've done it. So there's a couple interesting things about this game that I want to share with you guys. One is that the gameplay consists of basically two modes: an exploration mode, in which it's very similar to like a 3D Mario game, you run around, collect coins, run the level, and then battle mode, which there are certain like checkpoints or like flagged areas on the map when you're exploring that mark battle areas, and when you go into that, then it triggers the turn-based combat. And it's in this section where it's most comparable to XCOM, because there's not any kind of like base building or anything like that, or a huge threat as far as we know that you're trying to stave off, but it's most like XCOM in the way that the turns play out and the cinematic camera angles and all that. Each character has unique abilities that eventually can be upgraded and new ones unlocked later on, like in the best TBS games. And one thing that two things that I certainly didn't expect is that there's actually upgradable equipment in this, like the best, which just given that this is just kind of like a cartoony characters, I didn't expect there to be so much depth and like serious strategy going into like planning for battles and the battles themselves. And there's also destructible cover in the environments, which I didn't expect either. The last thing that stood out to me was some of the unique like teamwork ways by combining multiple characters, or just other unique ways of approaching certain situations that you do. One of them is a team jump, which allows one person to basically hoist or like throw one of your teammates to a location on the grid, which allows expanded movement during that turn. And then another one is there are actually pipes sometimes on the outside of the maps that you can use to travel to and then shoot out of and attack enemies. So I guess the pipes kind of equate to a free movement through a large portion of the map. So it basically allows for interesting flanking maneuvers. But I'm also curious if the enemies in the game will be able to use those as well. So if you are a Nintendo Switch owner or are planning on buying one in the near future, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battles is absolutely a must-have. Wow, I spent a long time talking about that. Moving on to Assassin's Creed Origins. I already talked about this quite a bit extensively in my Microsoft press conference recap and review, because they didn't show any gameplay during the actual conference itself at Ubisoft, but they did show some of it in Microsoft. So go and watch that video if you want to hear me talk about it, or you can watch there was a live stream for the Assassin's Creed Origins after the conference was over. So if you go watch my live coverage of the Ubisoft conference and go to like the last 25 minutes or half hour of it, you can hear some of my thoughts on it there, although it might be a little hard to hear because I think I went back and watched it and it was kind of quiet. So my apologies for that. But what Ubisoft did do for Assassin's Creed Origins on stage was they basically talked about the series history a bit and to preface AC Origins, and they also showed a cinematic trailer for the game. And then after that, we saw a small glimpse of the demo, which was just a camera recording a screen. And at first I thought they were going to do like an extended 5-minute gameplay debut. Well, it wouldn't be gameplay debut, but just going to show gameplay for 5 minutes just recording the screen. I'm like, oh no, don't do that. But thank goodness they didn't, because that would have been a disaster. Next up is the Crew 2, and this time instead of the United States, you are going to be traveling around Motor Nation, which seems like it's still based mostly in America, but it's somewhat fictitious as well. But it's just Motor Nation. It's just the place where everybody that's a fan of motorsports goes. And the coolest thing about the Crew 2 is it's expanded the roster of motor vehicles, so there are now a variety of motorsports for you to choose from and race in. Everything from cars to bikes to boats to planes to helicopters, all that cool stuff. It could be a blast, but the Crew 1 was sort of a letdown. But some easy ways to improve the Crew 2 are just to have a better crew system where you can have maybe 30, 40, 50, maybe even 100 people at once. You can kind of join, sort of like joining a clan or something like that. And then also some of the driving physics of the Crew I was not too big of a fan of. So if they made the physics a little more realistic, or at least not so fakey, I guess. I don't know how to really describe it. But if they improve the physics and make it something more like Need for Speed has, that would get me to play it. But if you were a fan of the Crew, I'm sure the Crew 2 will not disappoint, because it seems to be going the extra mile and even beyond that. Then next up we had some stuff, I guess just a little trailer for South Park, The Fractured Butthole. Not really much I can say about that, except for the first game was, the Stick of Truth was good. Fractured Butthole, when it finally does come out, it'll probably be just as good, if not better. I've heard it's addressed most of the criticisms that the first game had. Then there was what I expect is probably a small game. It's called Transference. It was just a small teaser for it. It's coming spring 2018, and it was like a live action, almost like documentary, like TV spot. Kind of like something you would see on 2020 or something. But it seems like it's probably some sort of a psychological horror game based on the teaser trailer. But there wasn't, I don't even think there was any gameplay footage or even concept art for the game. It was just pretty much all live action. So I have absolutely no idea what the heck it is. Maybe it's not even a game, but I expect it is a game. But it didn't really pique my interest too much. So if you want to know more about it, just Google Transference Ubisoft and you can figure out what it is for yourself. Now after Assassin's Creed 3 and especially Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, people have been wanting kind of standalone pirate game that's not based in the Assassin's Creed universe, and we're getting that. It's called Skull and Bones. Most of the naval combat seems to pull directly from the DNA of Assassin's Creed 4 ship combat, but there are some added features. For one, the mini-map seems like it's going to be very useful to figuring out where the enemies are, and will also provide you with some more important feedback, such as right next to the mini-map. It tells you I think it has the wind speed and your ship speed in knots, so that's going to be helpful information. But at its core, it seems to function the same as what Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was, and I'm assuming that each ship was controlled by one player, and I don't think the crew members were other players. If they were other players and it's like an MMO thing, that's going to be awesome. If that's not the case, still going to be pretty awesome most likely, but it would be even cooler if it was like an MMO and each cannon was controlled by an individual player. Although I guess maybe that might get boring after a while, because at least with something like Guns of Icarus or maybe Sea of Thieves, you can actually move around and go to where you're needed. But if each player was only controlling one cannon and they were stuck there, that might be kind of boring. But I don't think that's what it is at all. I think it's just one player sails each ship and then shoots the guns, just like in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, only it's a dedicated pirate game. The only other thing I have to say about it is the HP bars over the ship sometimes I think maybe the UI could be toned down and we don't need all that information, because the HP bars did make it a little less immersive, but at the same time it is kind of helpful to see exactly how many health points the ship has left. But that does bring up other concerns, or just, I guess it's my preference. I would prefer that the ship combat was not HP based, but rather there was like weak points on the ship, and it was sort of like War Thunder, like War Thunder versus World of Tanks. They're basically doing World of Tanks with Skull and Bones, but I want more of a War Thunder style of naval combat done by Ubisoft. So that's just my preference, but still looks fun nonetheless, and I'll probably play that within a few months or a year after it comes out. If they have a beta for it, I'm certainly going to get into that. I think I actually signed up for a beta, by the way, so expect that on the channel if I get an invitation to that. Then next up we have Just Dance 2018, which is Ubisoft back to their usual sort of, it's like the cringiest thing at the conference for sure. But there was a music artist called BB Rexa, which obviously she doesn't give a shit about Just Dance 2018. And I would also say there's clearly no innovation in Just Dance 2018 because they didn't even show any gameplay. It was literally just people came out and danced to music on stage, and then this BB Rexa lady, she came out and like sang one of her songs, I guess, which one of the notes she held out, I don't know, almost sounded kind of bad. It almost made me cringe. I don't know, it wasn't too bad. I guess she's an okay singer. I don't think she was using autotune or anything. Anyways, they didn't show any actual gameplay, which leads me to believe that they really don't give a shit about like actually like innovating or anything like that in Just Dance. It's just a lot of casual people buy it, so they're gonna keep putting out the same thing year after year. Then there was a South Park mobile game, which is called South Park Phone Destroyer. It's a mobile CCG, and it's coming out in 2017. I actually might be more likely to play this than the Fractured Butthole. And next, perhaps one of the most interesting games of the show, mainly because I haven't heard anything about it and it's a new thing. It's called Starlink Battle for Atlas. It's coming fall 2018, and I'm not quite sure that it's something I'd be into though, because it is a toys to life game, as it seems. I don't know which toys it's using. They never showed any. Well, I mean, I guess they did show the toys, but we don't know pricing for it yet. I think it was just the first reveal of it, so there's probably still a lot more information to come down the pipeline. But it's coming out to all consoles, I believe Nintendo Switch as well. They didn't mention anything about PC, so I guess it's not coming to PC, but it is coming to the other consoles. One thing that did really intrigue me about it though was they did say you can create your like custom starship, but I'm not really sure how that works if it's a Toys to Life game, if you can actually commission your own toy ship, or if it's just the digital versions only. Because there was one thing that the guy said that did make it sound like it might have just been a digital version, and then whatever the mass-produced ones were, that's the ones you could buy, the actual Toys to Life thing, and like scan them into the game. But if you could create your own, like get your own model, custom built, and then use that in the game, that would be really cool. So after that, they announced the first expansion for Steep, which is coming this December, and it's an Olympic-themed expansion. Second to last was one of the biggest games in the show, but not the biggest, Far Cry 5. Off the top of my head, I don't recall exactly which information was revealed during the show, but that combined with one of the developer interviews that I heard afterwards, I think it was the same day or maybe the next day during E3. Some of the information we found out was pretty interesting. By the way, the game is coming out February 27, 2018. So this time around, there's going to be a buddy system. There was a buddy system in Far Cry 2, but that was mainly just so you could talk to them and they would provide you alternative ways of completing the main missions for the factions. And then there was also your second best buddy who would be rescue ready for you to, like, if you're about to die or whatever and they're rescue ready, they'll come and save you and get you out of a bind. In Far Cry 5, though, it seems like you'll be able to have your buddies with you the whole time on missions, and you'll actually be able to give them commands and whatnot. The dog is one option as a buddy, which, honestly, he might be the best buddy, because basically you can sniff out the enemies, and it highlights them through walls. So forget, scouting out the area and tagging them with your camera or whatever you have with you. That's not even necessary anymore. You can just take the dog in there. I mean, it might make clearing out, one of the towns, which instead of outposts this time around, it's actually small towns that you're liberating, which, fits the theme really well. but it might make clearing out those towns in stealth maybe a bit too easy if you have the dog with you. Also, one of the things I heard in one of the interviews was something I never thought, well, I didn't expect, but I would have hoped that Ubisoft would have eventually done with Far Cry, and it seems like they finally have. They've broken the tower trend. From what I heard, there's no more climbing of towers. That combined with a non-linear story mission order is, well, it's an interesting concept. Basically, the idea was that one of the people, you would like rescue them, and then they'd give you information like, oh, over here there's a town or there's a region where some of these cultists have taken over, and or there's just something happening, and they kind of point you in that direction, and you go there with your GPS, and it kind of like just reveals more of the map just as you explore, I guess. But you don't actually have to go to towers, and it doesn't reveal the map, and then boom, and it populates your map with all the side activities. None of that anymore. I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be side activities and still going to be icons on the map that mark that, but it's not going to be done in the same way. It's going to be, I guess, more immersive. So this has the potential of being my second favorite Far Cry game, or if they do things right, it could combine the best things with new Far Cry and Far Cry 2, because Far Cry 2 was the most immersive Far Cry game, and one of the most immersive games I've ever played, perhaps even the most immersive game of all time in some respects. And Far Cry 5 seems to be going with some of those aspects, but still catering to, maybe more casual people, or people that don't want this super hardcore experience. Also, co-op has been a thing since Far Cry 4, and it is making a return in Far Cry 5, but I'm not quite sure to what extent, although it did sound like there's a possibility the whole campaign with all the main missions and everything might be playable in co-op, which would be really cool. Which I think this time, since I guess you're playing as like a junior deputy and not a set character, like I feel like they could just have like 2 junior deputies stuck in there, and then you and your friends could play that together. That would make sense. But once again, I can't confirm if that's actually going to happen. Finally, from the gameplay I've seen, there's also some amazing cover tunes of songs from bands such as ZZ Top in there, and the gameplay looks solid as ever. I mean, all Far Cry games pretty much have really solid gameplay, and this one seems to be no exception. And finally, Ubisoft closed out their conference with the announcement for Beyond Good and Evil 2, which, that's a big game. I'm looking forward to it. I saw some stuff afterwards. It seems very ambitious. I'm not even going into depth explaining it. Just check out one of the videos of them showing off like some of the levels. Just really expansive levels. The detail is amazing. The sense of scale is amazing. But just go watch one of those videos if you're really into it. There's a pretty good chance you've already seen it already. But with all that being said, I think people overreacted to this, and some people were saying, "Oh, Ubisoft won this E3," just mainly because they revealed Beyond Good and Evil 2. But really, there's not a whole lot we have to go off of, especially the conference, because we've seen stuff later that showed some gameplay. And if people are saying it then, like saying as far as a game that won E3, yeah, okay, you can make a case for Beyond Good and Evil 2 winning E3. But many people were seeing that just after the conference finished, which we had nothing. We just had this cinematic trailer that had no gameplay, not even any game. I mean, it was just like a CGI trailer, basically. It definitely did get people hyped. But I think the game's going to be good. It's up there for my most anticipated game of 2017. Well, it's not 2017. It's going to be 2018. It's a prequel, and it's definitely got a more mature tone than the previous game as well, and it's certainly going to be much longer. No question about that. So overall, Ubisoft had a pretty good conference this year. They focused on the games, and they didn't do anything that stood out as exceptionally cringy, with the exception of the Just Dance routine. Other than that, they focused on the games. They were much shorter, and they didn't show a bunch of Assassin's Creed stuff. They didn't really show any gameplay in the conference itself. They saved that till afterwards for the live stream, and I'm not going to talk about that in this video. But I think that was a good choice for them to say that, especially since they knew that they wanted to do an extended look at it and unedited for about 30 minutes. Very good choice with that. And I think one of the main reasons for that too was because they wanted to cut down on the length. They wanted to make it short. I think the conference was a little less than an hour. It was around 52, 53 minutes, something like that, which was way better, because I think last year, maybe my memory isn't serving me properly, but I think it was close to 2.5 hours. It was really long, really cringy. It was the worst. I probably even scored it high. I think I probably gave it something like a C- or something. To be honest, that conference should have been like D- or F or something. It was that bad. But this year, Ubisoft did much better. And if this is going to be Ubisoft from here on out, even if, you know, if Aisha Taylor's back next year, it could be a different story. But if this is going to be what Ubisoft's conferences are going to be like for future E3s, then I mean they have a chance at sometime actually stealing or winning an E3 in my book. So my final verdict for Ubisoft's E3 2017 press conference is a solid B. The presentation of Just Dance and the underwhelming nature of some of the announcements brings the score down a little bit, but Mario plus Rabbids and Far Cry 5 and Beyond Good and Evil 2 do a really solid job at bringing that score up and piquing my interest. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and be sure to check out the other E3 coverage on the channel if you missed some of it. And as always, we hope to see you guys in the next video.